All right, well, it is 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to call to order, what is this, June 18th, Urban Flood Safety District meeting. Welcome, everyone. And Francisca, could you I have a new script, so I'm trying to read it here. The meeting is now in session. Francisca, could you please do a roll call?
I know Director Eisenbeis will be a few minutes late, so I'll wait, but Director Calkins?
Here.
Director King? Director Mueller?
Here.
Director Ralston?
Here.
Here. Director Lane?
Here.
Director Stegman? Here. Perfect. And Director Eisenbeis will be joining later. We can go to public comment. Do I say that?
I don't know. Did we decide who should read that? Yeah, I don't.
I think it could go either way.
I don't care. I think we should just determine who should read it for the next chair, so that the next chair knows who should read it.
Let's have you read it.
Okay. All right, very good. Next, we will have public comment. This is the part of the agenda during which the board will hear community comments on district business. If you are online, please use the raise hand feature to alert staff that you wish to speak. If you are in person, please raise your hand. If there are public comments, please state your name and residential zip code for the record and limit your comment to 3 minutes so all agenda items can be discussed. If there, okay, so then I'll just say, okay, are there any public comments? Hearing none, as there are no public comments, the board will now move on to its next agenda item, which is the executive. Do we know this? Is it in two places? The executive director's report, number 4, number 8. Or am I looking at something else?
Number 8 is the goals.
Okay, public goals.
Yeah, two different.
Okay, all right, Steve, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll say that June is definitely, from a business standpoint, fiscal year closeout season. So Lori and her folks are working hard with all of the departments, as Eric knows well, to make sure that the timeliness of certain business transactions happens and that our budget is balanced. So your agenda today includes kind of our normal items. You already went through public comment. You'll hear about the contract report, financial report included in your packets. And then the consent agenda has 4 items. So just really quickly describe those. One is a purchase of a mower for operations that's capable of mowing on kind of the more extreme side slopes of our levees. It's actually a remote control mower, so it's safer rather than driving on some of these surfaces. And then we have an intergovernmental agreement with Metro. And the reason for this agreement is that our Salmon Creek levee project is going to have some construction impacts to a trail segment adjacent to Blue Lake Park that Metro owns and operates. So this IGA just specifies the terms of how we replace that trail with the project. We also have renewal of an intergovernmental agreement with the Port of Portland that specifies annual services that we provide in exchange for compensation from the port. And we have similar agreements with the city of Portland and Gresham and other entities where it makes mutual beneficial sense for us to perform some services. The last item on the consent agenda is a letter to the state SHPO office. This is the archaeological office. This is for our gate tower project. We have a existing contract in place with a design company. They have a subcontract with an archaeological firm, but we, in the dollar amount for that contract, did not add dollars in the event that they do encounter historical objects and they're need to be curated and taken care of in a certain way. We as the district will incur that cost. So this is just a letter to the state SHPO office saying that we have that arrangement. We are doing so they can proceed with the design. Special presentation items today include budget adoption, which will go to first in the agenda after this. And then the majority of the remainder of the meeting is to talk about my goals from you, the executive director goals. Just a few updates. So congratulations to Jessica Chosey. She was the district's Eager Beaver winner for May. And Jessica is a project manager in the district's engineering department. She's been working on the Gate Tower project, which is very important for FEMA accreditation. And she's been very proactive and effective in leading this project. She's recently had a structural design evaluation of the Gate Tower with a consultant that we have on board, and working very closely with this gentleman's team, James, our operations manager, to make sure that all of the historical knowledge that they have is transferred into that project. So congratulations to Jessica. Very important, the district has recently received notice from the Army Corps of Engineers that we had a successful RIP inspection. And this was for Pen 1 and Pen 2 district areas. And what the RIP inspection is, it's the Army Corps' rehabilitation and inspection program. And it's vital if we get approval from the Army Corps, as we have through the RIP program, it means that if we do have an event and we have a failure of a levee system, the Army Corps will come in and help us fix it. So it's very, very important. So Pen 1 and Pen 2 recently passed inspections, and this only happens once every 5 years. So big deal. Up next, we've gone through the process now for MCDD area and SDIC, those old legacy district areas. They were recently inspected, and we'll hear back in a few more months from the Corps. Just a quick note, but it is impactful. So a couple of our levee projects, Salmon Creek and Sunderland particularly, these projects are looking at making these levee sections stronger, essentially. So big projects to expand, make these sections more structurally robust. The Corps, Army Corps, has somewhat recently revised their internal process and allowances for analysis of these types of projects. And we are kind of piloting that and going through that with them right now. And what it means is we're very close. We're on the cusp of the factor of safety that you would need to show to meet federal flood safety standards. What it means is that if we go through a little bit more geotechnical work and design work, we may not have to do the extent of physical project that we initially thought we would. This could save many millions of dollars. So we are continuing to work through this process with the Corps. I don't want to overpromise and say that this is where it's going to end up, but it's very exciting to have this process going through with the Corps that may result in some significant savings. So more to come, but just wanted to let you know that we are going through that process with the Corps. We had a very cool slough celebration with the Columbia Slough Watershed Council here on campus last weekend. Yeah, June 13th, Saturday. I want to thank Francisca, Nick, several others that were on staff here kind of to help facilitate that event. And there were many partners, nonprofit partners that the district does business with here on campus. And it was just a very fun, good event, other than being very hot that day. We did have a mister set up, which was nice. And we had a boat operations set up a canoe launch just down here that had 2 dock areas that folks were using to launch canoes. So very, very fun.
Canoe races?
I don't know of any canoe races. Francisca, do you? So we were a hit. We had tabling. Our staff was there to really use it as an opportunity to connect with the community and all of our partners about what we're doing. And so everybody that passed through this event came by our table. We were a hit because of the popsicles. Again, very hot day, and we had the foresight, our staff did, to make sure we were loaded up on these very delicious popsicles that seem to get hit over and over again. Quick operation update. The operation crew began its annual summer work hours, which they shift a little earlier. So they go 6:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock as opposed to the 7 to 3:30.
That's why there were so few cars out.
Yeah.
It's like, where is everybody?
Yes.
Similar level of panic. Did I mess up the date?
And other than that, just that we will be bringing on a couple of seasonal operations workers that we have through the summertime. That seasonal help really is critical in that we have them do the districting work, which is the daily checks of the system. It frees up the more seasoned operations staff to do special projects, which we have to do during the dry season. I will just mention quickly upcoming events. Obviously, we have Juneteenth tomorrow, and the district office will be closed in observance of the holiday. And upcoming August 6th, we have the staff appreciation and anniversary celebration barbecue here on campus. That's it for my ED update.
Any questions, comments for Steve?
Actually, a quick question on the seasonal summer staff. Is that just a regular paid seasonal position, or is it like an internship? Is it a developmental role?
So James can help elaborate on this. In the past, we've just gone out and hired 2 seasonal workers, typically directly hired them. It has been, we have been successful in hiring permanently some of the folks that have served those roles. In fact, Matthew on staff now served as one of the seasonals in past years. This year, we're actually going through a temporary hiring service. And it may have the same benefits if we find the right person and we have an opening, which we don't currently. But if we did have an opening, we'd be looking to see are the folks that we have through that program capable and someone that we want to bring on.
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Hi, thanks. This is just a comment for Jessica. I just wanted to congratulate you. It's certainly high praise when you're recognized by your colleagues for your work. So well done.
Good eye, couldn't see that little. All right, thank you so much, Steve, appreciate it. Next up, I'll turn it over to Lori to talk about the budget adoption.
So this year we have no changes from the approved budget. So you'll see the same numbers in there that we started with when we proposed to the budget committee back in March. And we're asking today for you to consider adoption of the budget. And I'm going to pull up the language because there's specific words that we need to have you say in order to adopt that budget. I can take any questions if there's any questions. Before we.
Any questions or comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion that is on our screens, or I have a copy here too.
Chair, I would move to approve resolution number 2026-0601, adopting the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget, levying taxes in the amount of $1,414,000 and authorizing a general assessment of $11,720,988 to be distributed among the district's landowners under district's assessment methodology.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Thank you, Director Lane. It's been moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Lane to approve the budget adoption for fiscal year 26-27. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to express appreciation to Lori and the whole team for your work on this. I think the fact that there are no revisions and there was praise from the TSCC really speaks volumes to your work. Thank you.
I'll second that. I apologize for being kind of out of action. I was in the Multnomah County budget action, so I do appreciate you all and all of your hard work. And you know, the budget is very, it's a lot of work, and really glad to see it go without any problems or challenges. Cool.
Thank you, Chair. I was remiss in also not thanking our Budget Committee Chair, Director Mueller, for seamlessly navigating us through the process. Thank you.
Taking credit for all of Lori's hard work.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yes.
Well done. Any other discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. All right, next up is the consent agenda item, which Steve had just gone over. We've got the May 7th work session meeting minutes, as well as the May 21st meeting minutes, the Brim tractor slope mower purchase, the Metro Marine Drive Path IGA, Port of Portland IGA, and a letter of funding for supporting the archaeological services for the Gay Tower project. Any questions, Director?
Chair, I would move adoption of the consent agenda as published.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. Director Mueller has motioned to adopt the consent agenda. Director Johnson has seconded. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Director.
Thank you, Chair. As last year when we renewed the Port of Portland IGA, I just want to acknowledge that my position on this board is specified in statute as representing the Port of Portland. So because of that, we'll go ahead and vote on this, but I want to acknowledge that for any members of the public that might be listening.
Thank you, Director. That's
That reminds me of the question. Did you bring your checkbook?
I love to.
Oh!
all right. Any other questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. All right, now we'll go back to Lori to do the financial report.
So your packet today is the April 2026 financial report for the district, which includes both monthly and fiscal year-to-date financial information for the district. Today, we'll walk through the year-to-date spending information for the general fund. So this slide shows the general fund spending results by budget appropriation line. These lines are the appropriation amounts with which we are required to stay within in order to comply with Oregon local budget law. First, you see the total annual budget by appropriation line. The next column shows the allocated budget for year-to-date through April. The third column shows the actual expenditures through April. And you can see in the fourth column that all of the appropriation lines are less than budget, thus in compliance with Oregon local budget law for the fiscal year. For the executive director, the year-to-date spending includes personnel cost and costs related to our management consulting. The positive variance is primarily related to management consulting, and we anticipate this positive variance will continue for the fiscal year, but will be offset by some payments of accrued leave balances that happened for the outgoing executive director. The positive variance in legal reflects the timing of legal billings received for processing and an open position in this division. Finance and administration includes administration, IT, financial services, board services, and human resources. The positive variance results from 1.6 FTEs in open positions year to date, but I'm happy to report that we were successful in offering and getting an acceptance for an accounting supervisor who will be starting on July 6th. So we're very excited about that. And we also have some differences in materials and services spending. Notice what happened here. Computer got tired. A portion of the materials and services difference is timing, but we're anticipating positive variances in consulting costs and employee training costs for the year. Planning and Public Affairs has 2.1 FTEs in open positions, along with a 0.8 FTE of general fund positions working on the GEO bond projects, resulting in a positive variance for the year thus far. The division is also experiencing timing differences for materials and services, including the portion of the $500,000 for new responsibilities for the district. Boy, this is doing what it wants today. Engineering and operations also has timing difference in materials and services expense, including lower costs than planned for the year for the Salmon Creek dredging project, houseless coordination, electricity, and incident response. In general fund capital projects, we have timing differences for spending on projects as well. For general fund debt service, the IFA loan payment for the year has been processed. The remainder of the loan payments happen in May and June. Let's take a look at revenues. This chart shows the year-to-date budget and actual revenues for the general fund. As you can see, assessment revenues are in full swing, with revenues leading the year-to-date budget due to timing of collections. We're projecting that assessment revenues will be slightly more than budget at the $9.6 million for the current fiscal year. 3/4 of the flood safety fee have been billed to local jurisdictions and balances have been collected. We actually sent out the fourth quarter billing just recently, so we're starting to get payment on those as well. Grant revenues are lower than year-to-date budget because of the timing of grant funds for the PMLS from OBDD, and I actually am not sure that we'll see those come in this fiscal year. We may see those come in July. We're currently working to provide the state with the documentation that we need to receive those grant funds, so we may see a little bit of a swing in timing there. I can take any questions at this point about the financials.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions, comments? Not here. Thank you, Lori. All right, back to you, Steve, to talk about the executive director goals.
Okay, I'm going to provide a handout to start. If you can take one of each and pass these around. Yeah, take them off the top. And Vice Chair Ralston and Director Hawkins, I just emailed you a couple documents. These are the documents that we must talk about. And clean versions of the draft goals were included in the packet. This is kind of I highlighted each goal and want to step through to give you more of an explanation of kind of how I came up with the draft. Just a few notes before we begin. We had some discussion about whether this should be an open session discussion or an executive session. We talked about it internally, and my preference was for it to be open session. I just in the name of transparency, I think the goals that you set for me in very large part are the goals for the organization. But if at any point, any director feels like the discussion should be held in exec session, just please let me know. We'll convene exec session. Also, I'm not intending for you to have to adopt this today. If you feel like there's revisions that should be made, if you can't make those in the meeting today, then certainly I'll just bring this back to a future meeting to get adopted. So with that, I guess I'll start with kind of the thought process I used to draft these goals. I started with the goals that you had set for the prior director, and that is this document here. And you have some color coding here. So the color coding is in green. I highlighted the goals that I felt were either accomplished by the prior ED or were no longer relevant for my position. The yellow highlights are the ones that I transferred over to my draft goals. And then there were a couple of red ones that we'll talk a little bit more about that were not transferred to my goals for other reasons. So bear with me. This is going to be a little bit of a slog, but I kind of want to go through these. A lot, you'll notice in the goal 1 category, succession planning. A lot of these were accomplished. So you see a lot of green here. You see a lot of, I'm not gonna be doing these, or my intent is not to do these. You should tell me otherwise. But one goal here was carried on. That was number 5. And when I say carried on, it wasn't always carried on word for word. A lot of it was the intent of the goal and sometimes I massaged the wording a little bit. Provide ongoing structured executive coaching to the executive team, management team members. I didn't carry forward the minimum quarterly meetings with coach. That felt overly specific and we hadn't necessarily been following that, but I did carry forth the intent of that one. And we'll go through how I worded them in a second here, but I just want to give you the gist of the ones from Jim's goals. Goal category 2 was strategic planning. And we've done a lot of good work as a district and you as the board to work through some of the planning and get some of these things adopted. So obviously with this the somewhat recent strategic plan that you adopted, that first one was accomplished. I carried forth this number 2 and 3. So this number 2 is looking at the risk posed by atmospheric rivers. And I'll report that we're making very good progress and very nearing completion of an in-house model to more accurately reflect what the flooding impacts will be for different storm events. And that's really going to be the tool that we're going to use to model atmospheric river impacts. Number 3, advance the watershed plan, facilities plan, asset management plan. These are plans that are in process and again, making good progress on, but should be carried forward in my goals. Number 4, we accomplished. Congratulations. We are the flood safety district doing business as. Wonderful. Number 5, gaining support for investing the new purposes revenue, the $500,000 you've already directed us to use the nonprofit entities so that we don't do that directly. And we will come back and report the uses every year from that pot. The leadership category, both 3, you see I'm carrying forth the first 2, not as specifically worded as these. And again, we'll get into how I worded them, but this is talking about management, executive team members reporting that they have trust in me as the leader, and the board reporting that you have high trust in me as well. I did not carry forth the third one. Let's see, at least 85% of district's employees report they understand the district's mission, vision. We are doing a version of that as far as we're going to be polling staff, and that I think will be part of it. So maybe in a way, I could add a goal. I didn't add a specific one for me on that. Category 4, advocacy and consensus building. This is a lot of the goals related to working with the city of Portland, Port of Portland, the other cities in our district. And a lot of these you see I'm carrying those forth. Hosting events with the state legislative delegation, preparing for our project partnership agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, meeting with congressional representatives' offices and the like. you'll see a red one here, and it's red because of an oversight on my part. I think I would advocate for including some version of this in my draft goals. I just failed to do that when I put the draft together. Goal 5 category, social justice. The first one, completing the equity action plan. We accomplished that as a district. I'm continuing forward versions of the equity training, and then ensuring social justice metrics are embedded in our plans. I am not carrying forth the one that says establish specific targets for COVID certified firm spending. I think, as you know, we've run into some issues, particularly with any of our contracts that overlap into the federal side. We're also seeing increasingly agreements that we sign with any entities are looking at all of the business that we do. And so not proposing that we carry that forward. Interpersonal skills, and just a note to simplify a little bit, I ended up combining goal category 6 from the prior here, interpersonal skills, with goal category 3, leadership. So you won't see 6 goal categories in mine, you'll see 5. But see, interpersonal skills, developing an annual survey. I think we're in good progress there and largely complete with that. So I'm not planning to include it as a specific goal for me, but I'll assure you that we are doing that. Continuing the executive team's work with executive coaching, that's a version of that continues on. And then the one Jim had, talk less, listen more. I'm going to say he accomplished that. And I'm happy to have a similar version of that, but I didn't include that. Very hard to measure. And let's transition, unless you have questions, we can transition to the draft goals that I put together for my position. Yes, this one.
One question on this first sheet, under goal 5, social justice, is 4 that was carried over, is that implementation essentially of item 1 that was completed, or are those different things?
Those are slightly different things in my mind. So the equity action plan, while it probably had some specific elements around social justice metrics, I could be incorrect about that.
So I'm now seeing that you have a new item on your sheet, color coded blue, that is the ongoing implementation of that first item. So disregard my question.
Okay. And what we can get a better answer to is whether within the equity action plan, there's a specific one talking about embedding social justice metrics in our plans. There likely could be, I don't know.
I just wanted to make sure there was some ongoing sort of follow through.
Okay, transitioning to the draft goals. I didn't include the key in this, but I'm going to walk you through it. So blue elements are new goals that I've proposed that you set for me.
Didn't come from Jim's
These
previous
are not
list.
from Jim's previous list. These are goals that I will hold myself to. If you don't want to have them on the list, that's fine. I just felt like they were very important for me and the district as a whole. And so goal category 1 is a new category. It's organizational structure and optimization. I do feel like a very important component of my role as executive director is making sure we have the right structure in place to deliver the strategic plan, deliver your vision, and that we're not burning staff out or doing the opposite, being careless with our budget. So I worded this as determine and implement a staffing structure to deliver on the district's strategic plan and adopted budget, while optimizing operational productivity, efficiency, staff morale. And this is an ongoing one, although I will say with some of the structure that org structure changes that we already made as I've come on, a lot of this is already completed. But that's the first goal category. And we can answer questions with each category. I can just wait till the end, whatever your preference.
Just go
Keep
ahead.
going through.
Feel free if anybody has a question. I'm sure they'll ask.
So goal category 2, strategic planning, budgeting, and capital bond project delivery. So that's worded a little differently than just strategic planning. But the first 3 are new goals. So the first goal, develop a draft 27-28 budget in alignment with priorities identified by the board. So obviously the district does this every year. I feel like it's just a very important component to call out as a goal. Advance the capital projects approved by the board in the annual budget and on the GeoBond project list. Present schedule updates and report on major milestones to the board. Number 3, ensure facilitation of the bond accountability committee meetings, member education and information exchange in accordance with adopted requirements. And then the next 3 are just carried over, as I mentioned. That's what the yellow highlights mean. So advancing the planning work that we've been doing, tracking and reporting to the board how the new purposes funding is allocated each year, and then the strategic consideration for risks posed by atmospheric rivers. Goal category 3 is organizational leadership. And then I've added communication, culture, and interpersonal skills. First 2 goals are carryovers, conduct the staff survey, and also implement 360-degree questions for my performance within the staff survey. I put be a visible, engaged, and effective leader for staff in the district as a whole, as reflected in those survey results. The third one is a new one. Promote a culture of operational safety, also is reflected in survey. So does the staff feel like we are taking safety seriously? Are we implementing measures to make sure they're safe in the field?
Quickly, if I can, with that one. I think it's a great addition. I wonder if it could be, so reflected in survey results, I think is good. You also have like IFR data, don't you? I feel like,
We do have to report any
yeah, I feel like
accidents.
if you've got hard numbers anyway, you might as well count those as part of the metrics.
Okay. I can figure out how to best word that. So there's more of a measure. The next 2 are carryovers, help facilitate. Actually, that one is not. So I think I mislabeled that one. That one should be blue, I think. So I crafted a new goal, help facilitate effective board meetings by ensuring the materials are organized well and clearly communicated as reflected in, this would be a survey of you. Is the material coming to you in a way that makes decision-making efficient and clear? Invest in the ongoing coaches training for executive team managers. That's a carryover. Goals category 4, largely all carryovers. This is the external advocacy and consensus building. I won't go through each of these, I guess, in detail unless you want me to. But again, these are very similar to the goals, and they were going to be ongoing. They weren't ones that were necessarily going to be accomplished by a certain time period by Jim.
And this is the category where the one on the previous list that was inadvertently read.
Yes.
Would be just added as.
I would
the next
add-
bullet point.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And I think I would word it maybe a little differently. It says provide an update about the district's work to the city council's metro board and the county. I think it can be difficult to get on some city council agendas. So it's more about reaching out, offering, if they want that update, then of course we're going to do it.
Being available.
But I don't necessarily, if they're really resisting and saying, look, we get it, you guys are doing your work. We don't want an update at our council. It's up to them.
I had a similar question about the item for develop and implement an outreach strategy with the delegation offices. I noticed on Jim's goals, it referenced meeting with each of those offices. So is
I changed the wording of that. Develop and implement an outreach strategy for the district's congressional offices this fiscal year. So I think while we'll attempt to meet, having a clear plan and how we structure that is something that's still up in the air. I'm happy to be more specific with it, but I don't know that, I don't know that I know entirely how that's gonna happen yet.
Yeah, I guess as a general comment, I will say, I appreciate the intent of being strategic. With some of these items, I start to wonder how ultimately it will be measured.
Yeah.
So just something to think about.
Okay. And I haven't been, but I meant to briefly discuss how I would think each element's gonna be measured, or is it gonna be more of a report at the end of the year from me to you to say the things that have been accomplished to meet the intent of the goal, as opposed to a specific percentage or a metric. Appreciate and love to have that specificity, just can't always do it.
Vice Chair question.
Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Steve, I have an interest in how the board's strategy around advancing our reserves may be woven into these goals. So for example, unless there's a goal that already exists, I think it might be worthwhile to have a goal that says something along the lines of, advance the reserve strategy adopted by the district and report and track, semi-annually or something like that, including, and here's an element that maybe is a little too much detail, but I think it's important because we get into this trend of underspending our budget, but including tracking and reporting on how unspent budget is being reallocated in the service of building our reserves. So that's the concept, and a little bit of detail about what I'm thinking. If you think that topic is already represented in some other goal, that's cool. But I think our reserves, our intent is, in the millions. We have a goal already around the 500,000 level, the new allocation. So I think based on the sort of the scale of our reserves goal, it might be worth a little bit of attention. Just like your thoughts on that.
I don't think that specifically is represented by a current goal, but I'd ask Lori to weigh in before maybe we discuss further.
I'm not sure if you have a goal on following board policies, but the board policy is pretty specifically defines how we're addressing both the operating reserve and the capital reserve. The operating reserve got established today when you adopted the budget, and it will continue going forward. It's really not a number that we can monkey with unless we change the policy, because the policy specifically defines that it's going to be 6 months worth of operating costs that gets defined in the budget. So
What I heard from Phil was maybe more about reporting. And does the policy specify we come back to the board as a certain interval?
So the reserves will show up in your balance sheet on your report every month. The capital reserve we'll be talking about in accordance with the policy after we've gotten the audit report and have final operating results for the current year, because we can't really talk as a board about how much you want to set aside as a capital reserve until you see what the final operating results are for the fiscal year. So I was planning on bringing that back to the board in September when we have the audit, or actually October when we have the auditors here with the results of the audit. So, but both of those reserve amounts get set once a year, the operating reserve getting set during the budget process, and the capital reserve when we look at it after the end of the fiscal year with the final audit results. And like I said, those reserves will be identified in the balance sheet that's in the financial report that you receive every month. So the board really has the final say on how much you want to set aside on an annual basis for the capital reserve.
So that'll have to be a discussion with the board.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, so I would be in violation of the board policy if I were not to bring that to the board.
Okay. Thanks. Maybe it doesn't warrant a separate goal as long as it's sort of baked into our reporting cycle on the finances anyway. I just don't want it to get lost in all the details. I think it's a significant, pretty material issue for the future. So, so I'm good with pulling it out if you feel like there's going to be adequate reporting. Just thought I'd bring that one up. Thank you.
Just one thought on the point that Director Ralston raised, and I think there is perhaps room under category 1, that item there about staffing structure, to, at least on operational reserves, include that in your reporting.
And because we've just cracked open category 1, I feel like this one bullet has a lot in it, but the category only has one bullet versus, 5 or 6, and the others, and maybe it could be split out or fleshed out a little bit farther. That's just sort of satisfying aesthetic.
Like a paragraph.
But, between, so you got the staffing piece, staffing structure, work structure, that's great. Operational efficiency and productivity is sort of a different thing. Staff morale, culture is different again. So maybe it could be unpacked. Okay.
And along the same lines, Steve, I don't know if you determine what those key performance indicators are, like how, to directors point, I was like, how are you measuring these things?
Yeah, and maybe I could step through each of them and give a quick sentence on should I finish goal 5 first and then we'll jump back up? Okay. The goal category 5, social justice, equity. I added a new goal, just implement the actions identified in the district's equity action plan. That'll be ongoing, but that would be just as an example. I would report out to you at the end of the year which actions within the plan we accomplished. Continue regular equity emotional intelligence training with managers leadership. That's a carryover. And then ensure the social justice metrics are explored and embedded as appropriate in the district's plans. Okay, how do we measure these things? So for the first one, again, it is determining, implementing a staffing structure to be effective as a district, and effectiveness from all angles, right? Efficiency, staff morale, culture, all that stuff, which is measured in other ways, but really the goal here is in my decision making around the staffing structure. So how do you measure that? That's a tough question. I think potentially we could embed some questions in the annual staff survey that talk a little bit about does staff feel like we're, and they're within the area that they're at, are they adequately resourced? Are they being overworked, underworked? That should point back to the structure we've set as a district. I'm of course going to report on any savings that we've realized, which gets back to the Phil's bringing up about the reserves, what we're able to shift into reserves, but open to your ideas about how else we could measure that one.
How do you measure productivity? I think just the nature of the district, the work, I think it's probably pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, here's an example which is not transferable, but like when we look at the county, like the number of applications for rental assistance, like we know how many applications can be processed by how many people, and then we can calculate, okay, so we're going to need 3 FTEs to get whatever, $1 million out over a fiscal year. But I don't know, like your work is so different. Is there anything comparable to measure productivity?
That's I think everybody here faces the same challenge in your work probably, and we have very different work teams. I can give you some examples. I think he's online, Kevin within the engineering team, because I most closely linked to that team. I think other groups do this as well. Very close track of, staff members, which projects they have. So he's forecasting for the year, how many hours it should take working to manage a specific project, and he's allocating those hours, and then training and every other element that staff spends time on, he's planning that out. So we're reviewing those things. And that comes to when we get to the point where we feel like, okay, the workload is justifying us adding in this area. Those are the types of questions we go through and make a manager make the case. But how do you measure productivity? We trust and embolden our managers to be doing that. The engineering manager is going to know the project management side better than somebody in another area. Lori and her finance folks are going to know what it takes to do the budgeting. So to some degree, we're placing trust in those managers, and I need to do that.
Maybe it's kind of like the budgeting of like forecasting compared to actuals. I think about like the kicker, like the state kicker is that the economists, which is kind of crazy, right? If economists forecast, if they look into their crystal ball, and if they're off by a certain amount, then we all get a kicker. But I mean, in the scheme of things, it's like, well, what does it matter? In that case, what does it matter? But I do think the ability that as our engineers take on projects, the better that they are at projecting the amount of time and energy that goes into a project. Here's what they thought it was going to be. Here's what it was actually going to be. And maybe it was more, maybe it was less. And then how did they use that information to do better forecasting in the future?
Exactly. Yeah, we continually improve how we're doing.
Steve, can I just say one thing? So in human resources right now, we're going through a project where we're making updates to our performance review process. And part of that update is quarterly reviews instead of annual, which allows us to really ensure that we're giving regular feedback to our employees. One of the other pieces that we're pulling together and that we're really starting to share with our staff is that we have certain performance criteria for employees and certain performance criteria for managers. And we're going through right now and explaining to them what that means. So whether that means how efficient, so for staff, like how efficient are you at doing your work is one of those pieces of criteria that we're going to be looking at. So the regular performance reviews, which roll up and end up on Steve's desk, are going to help him to understand how folks are doing as far as not just did you finish your work, but how did you do your work and how did you approach your work to really uphold the values of the organization. So I think that documentation process is really going to give Steve the information to know how people are doing, which is different than, are you good at estimating a project? That's kind of what you're doing in your work, but we're really going to be starting to evaluate how you're approaching and how you're doing your work as well. So if we start to slip, so one of the things that we're going to be monitoring on the Bond Accountability Committee is here's our original schedule for a project and here's where we're at in that schedule. So if you start to see slip in the completion of those projects, that would be another area where we would want to take a look and see whether we're
Due to our staffing structure, is it due to
is
lack
it
of
due to
productivity
productivity?
or productivity?
Yeah, like I really
Or
don't,
outside of our control.
I don't want to see the district turn into the like work measurement district, right? Like I don't want you
Right.
spending a ton of time and resources measuring all this. I wonder if there are existing, mechanisms that can be sort of aggregated for a,
Yeah, I mean, part of it's just being developed because we're going through the levels of service process and we're identifying KPIs. Part of it we're pulling together, right now. part of it is we only have 35 employees. And there are some areas, like I can tell you in finance, if I, you know, I would be far more productive if I had more transactions, but you have to have enough people to segregate duties to make sure that you're not perpetuating fraud. So there are some things within a small organization where you have to be creative and identify how you're going to divide up the work. And it may not look as productive as a larger organization that has multiple people doing the same function. So it's just an interesting question, I think.
Director Johnston, and then we'll go to Director
I
Clark.
was gonna just point out that we've got, I was just gonna shout out.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking about the strategic plan and the goals, levels of service and KPIs. Like, I would like for us to be an outcome-oriented organization to address the things that we promise to the public. And we are so thoughtful with our processes around these things, but I think trust in our managers and what is laid out to load balance work. I think it's kind of what Nick was saying in terms of we're not a work hour attracting productivity district. So I think that is not something that I would expect to see super detailed individual efficiency things in the executive director's goals specifically for myself. But I think we're all agreeing on both from the individual performance side, which there are measures built in through HR. Those are coming. We would want to support ensuring there's both load balancing and opportunities for growth and ability to gain feedback to do work more efficiently. But I think at the district level and a leadership level, it's really about finger on the pulse and trust in managers to deliver against the KPIs that we keep their key performance indicators, right? That's how we know that we're doing what we're supposed to. So that's my 2 cents on this.
Director Ralston, Vice Chair.
I agree with Director Cochran's comments, and a couple of specific thoughts would be to look at, we're always worried, or most organizations are worried about overspending budgets and that kind of thing. I'm actually more worried about our ability to properly spend budget on schedule. And that goes to sort of the delivery of our promises to the public in a timely fashion. And I think one way to help assure that happens is through the organizational structure, proper staffing levels to meet the commitments that we've made. So I would encourage some sort of metric that is actually looks at both overspending, but also underspending, that we're not underspending too much because we don't have the people in place to actually do the work that we're promising to do or that we're collecting revenue on. So it might be something as simple as, don't underspend the operating budget by, 15% or 20% on an annualized basis, or something along those lines. Or maybe it's even more qualitative, but a reflection that both timing of our delivery to the public and that we're properly staffed to deliver on the commitment would be a metric I think would be useful. Thank you.
That's a good question. We're always in a catch-22 at the county. It's number one, we don't even know if we're under overspent until the fall. You're just kind of shooting in the dark, I hope we're, and then we get in trouble if we overspend, and we get in trouble if we underspend. So I just didn't know, how does the district, how do you track that?
Well, I think it's a balancing act because when you talk about productivity and you talk about the staffing structure, I mean, we intentionally, even though Steve has made an initial decision about the staffing structure, we intentionally left the old structure in place in the budget to allow him to evaluate whether that's working or not, because you don't want to make a big cut and then find out 6 months into your budget that you really shouldn't have made that cut. So we made a conscious decision to leave that in the budget to allow him the flexibility to continue to evaluate how we're doing as an organization. But that in what is being described here could actually be a performance issue that he's too far under budget. So I think it's a balancing act, and I think I try to, when I bring the financial reports to each month, I try not to make them the same. I try to look at the key issues and identify areas where, you know, we know we're not going to spend the $500,000 this year, and we have a reason for that. We know that we had an open position in legal, and we have a reason for why that variance is there. So I'm trying to focus on kind of those key issues when I'm reporting back to you every month. And if there were an item of concern, I think that's where we would identify it. And you could say to Steve, like, we're seeing that so we have the new report that says, how are we doing on our timelines with the projects? We see that we're slipping on these projects. Why aren't you? And we see that you have this positive variance because you haven't hired engineers. What are you doing? What is your plan? So I think that's the connection. That's the connection point for you to be able to identify if there's issues in this category number one.
And I've experienced both sides of this coin, right? I've seen organizations that had really poor morale because they didn't empower their people and give their people meaningful, good work, challenging them. And I've seen organizations that tried to do that too hard and were overworking folks and suffered from that aspect. So my job is to balance that and to deliver results. So if we can focus on the results piece and not just how you got there, did you spend the money? I mean, I definitely don't want to create an incentive to spend money just to spend money and to make sure that I met a metric that was in place that we put here. But I'll think that one through a little bit more and maybe come back with some ideas about how to make it a little bit more measurable.
And at least from my perspective, and I won't be shocked if other people share this sentiment, like, I'm not looking for, ways to set up gotchas.
Yeah.
Or create sort of targets that you just have to hit a target. It's more thinking through, like, we read all this stuff and it's good stuff. And it's like, oh, what's that going to look like? It's just the questions they come up.
It's always better. It's always nice if they're easily measured. Did you accomplish it or not? So I was a little conflicted putting this first one on, but at the same time, I had like a great boss mentor that said, as a city manager, he said, my job is to hire the right people and staff the organization properly. That was like his whole job. And I think as long as he did that and provided good inspiration and was a good leader, that was it. And so I felt like we were missing something here, but it's hard to measure. Let's talk a little bit about measuring and see goal category 2, the planning. The first one's very easily measured. We're going to do it. I'll say that. Yeah, that's like a yes, you did it, or no, you didn't. The second one, advance the capital projects approved by the board in the annual budget on the GO bond project list and present the schedule updates and report on major milestones to the board. So again, we are planning to do this, but I do think it's really important. I think I've heard from many of you that following through on the promises we made to the community on the bond is one of the top priorities we should have. So I wanted to make sure that was reflected here. And really it's more of a, you did it or you didn't. You came to us, you reported the progress of these projects. It gives you the chance to weigh in. Is that progress being made concerning or not concerning? We can justify and give you the information about why things may be delayed in some cases with the Army Corps or the third one, ensure facilitation of the bond accountability committee meetings. Again, I felt like this is a new process for the district, and making sure that this bond accountability committee is supported and they're meeting, they're doing the things that we said that we do and we have to do from a legal standpoint. It's kind of a you did it or you didn't. And if there's problems with how the bond accountability committee process is going, I think I need to hear about it from you, right? And we need to correct it.
Well, and they'll hear about it from the committee because the committee is going to come here once a year and give you their report on what they experienced for the year.
Yeah.
Staff attends the bond committee meetings. You learn.
So our senior management group of staff are organizing the meetings because we wanted to give them an opportunity to facilitate, similar to what we do with the board meetings here. So Angel is the primary contact on the finance side.
Carrie Sandeman.
Carrie Sandeman and Kevin are.
I'll be attending the first to give the welcome and thank you.
Okay.
And we have Director Johnson
Right?
is attending.
I've not received anything about it yet. is
Thank you,
all.
Director. Volunteering.
July 1st is the first meeting. We will make sure that you get that invitation. Apologies that you haven't received that.
Appreciate it. I just had a moment of panic.
The packet has not gone out. It's in review.
Love it. Thank you.
With the goals that shifted over from the prior, let's see, advance the watershed plan, facilities plan, strategic plan, update the board as appropriate. I think, these are very important plans for the district, and we're already planning to bring them to you as they're wrapping up. So I think you're going to get a good sense of whether we're finishing these up or not. Track and report to the board how the new purposes funding, that's very clear. I'm either doing it or I'm not. Develop a strategy for consideration of the risks posed by atmospheric rivers. We are planning on coming to you with a work session item after we've got the model in place, after we're starting that work to show you what its capabilities are. I think this is going to be very largely I either did it or I didn't, based on what you see with that. Goal category 3, conduct a staff survey. Again, we either did it or we didn't. It's going to have questions about my performance that you'll glean information from. The next one is difficult to measure, right? It's be a visible, engaged, effective leader as reflected in the staff survey results. We're going to have some statistics, I think, that pop out of that survey. You'll get to see the questions that were around my performance. You'll get to see where the staff responses were. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But I mean, that's kind of what we reviewed the other day.
Yes.
But I don't know that I want to say 75% of staff said I was doing this when we don't have the questions entirely worked out yet.
We're getting a baseline this year. So we've made the decision to delay and show you the baseline at the same time that we show you next year's results. But we're getting the baseline now because the executive team really wants to work together on the things that we need to focus on in the upcoming years.
So from that perspective, maybe with some of these that do rely more on survey results, with the first year, I would ask that we don't have specific numbers, but we're going to have the baseline, we're going to have the results, and I think we can start to look at what those were in trend lines and where you want me to go from there, and then it makes more sense maybe to set a specific number for a specific metric. Let's see, just where are we at? Promote a culture of operational safety is reflected in the SAPs. Again, well, this is a good one where we could maybe set some goals on specific numbers that are coming back from staff, or if there are, and I'll think about this some more, goals for specific incident numbers.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure, like at Bonneville, we have ceilings for different operational groups. IFR ceilings, and if you're over, you're red or whatever. I don't know if you necessarily need that, but if it's information that you have anyway, and we can just see it, quarterly or twice a year, like if it's going up year over year, it's like, oh, culture?
This is an interesting question. And certainly like with actual accidents, we have that data and we can report it. The other one that's very important is near miss reporting.
Yeah.
And this was an area that the district, I think Jim made very good improvement on because we had a culture, and some of it was precipitated because of the policies maybe the district had in place that wasn't encouraging of reporting.
Right.
And we really wanted to get away from that. So I think you've seen maybe numbers of near miss accidents being reported. Does that indicate that there's more actual near misses out there? Probably not. And maybe it's even the opposite because I know we've made safety improvements physically in the field.
Arguably, kind of, like, from my point of view, from a safety perspective, you kind of want to see more because that means people are reporting more, not that they're happening more. And so I fear putting that kind of numbers on stuff just because personally, I know that like when I've been out in the field, depending on other people's metrics, there has been, encouragement to report more or less. And I don't like that, how that can pass down. Not to say it would, but
I think that was one of Jim's concerns. And so
Yeah.
he was really careful about not releasing reports that had counts on them. And he really encouraged a culture of talking about these situations so that we could identify early on things that we could make better for our employees. And I think that has worked very positively for us last year, especially.
I know we proactively invited an OSHA survey. They came out, they looked at all of our spaces. We had a list of things. We one by one remedied those items. That was accomplished. I can talk with the safety committee about how frequently we want to do that. And maybe that's a more specific goal. We can put 1 year for me to accomplish the voluntary survey, report to the board items. One of my biggest concerns, and I've talked about this before, is the shop. And we are working to put a project together within budget resources that addresses deficiencies in code items at the shop.
Maybe another way you could measure it, I don't know if might have some drawbacks, but just the number of safety process improvements. Maybe that's something you could track. Then it's not like based on like people reporting, it's like more like, okay, there was a problem, but we met and we decided we're gonna start doing it this way.
I like that because it's also tied to the near miss. When we get a near miss report, the safety committee talks about it, and ultimately, the best outcome is a safety improvement. Like if we're able to change how we're doing something or a physical thing. So yeah, I like that.
we also do like, my work reports like remarkably safe behavior kind of a thing as like an alternative, like this could have happened, but it's not even a near miss. It's just like, hey, we saw a problem and we solved it. Here's how, just to kind of give a person kudos for whatever, like I got one once for like, oh, I was sampling and it was really hot. So I was using my car as shade or something like that. Like, it's like very little things, but like sometimes, I don't know, it can add to it.
I'll ask the safety committee. I think they've discussed similar things and maybe implementing something
I
similar.
never want to make it more onerous to do
Yeah,
anything, but if it's like, if things are already,
Yeah, it's more of like a kudos.
Yeah.
Like, I think we had a fire in one of the shop buildings and there was a fire door between the two buildings. Luckily, one of the folks that worked there shut the fire door because there was a bunch of chemicals. And the whole building would have been, half the building was destroyed, but the whole building would have been destroyed had that fire door not been closed. So that would have been, like, hey, let's make sure we close the fire door, this door. So, and then we give people kudos for saying, oh, you know what, we don't really have that written down in our procedures.
That's great. help facilitate effective board meetings as reflected in a board survey. So
That'll be measured for you.
Yeah, that was pretty straightforward. We'll tell you, hopefully we'll tell you before it happens, like before the end of the year.
Every board meeting.
Yeah.
And we internally, I'll say we're already talking about how we can ensure presentations or dial, how can we make them better for the audience that we're presenting to, make them more visual. We're very techie, we're very wonky, and it's because we have very smart individuals that are very good at what they do. But I know from experience, when I am that subject matter expert and I'm putting the presentation together, sometimes I go a little deep, and I feel like we need to hit the right balance to make sure that we're.
And this is really good. Angelique and I think Francisca gave you a board script, which is really, really helpful. So the incoming chair, like it's all right here. The only while we're on this topic, the only suggestion is that on the agenda, if you could put the page number, like I was trying to find Lori's presentation, and I'm like, what page is it when I'm scrolling through a 275 page document? So if it said page 89, that'd be helpful.
Invest in ongoing coaching training for exec team district managers. This is one where I would expect that I report to you at the end of the year what we did to meet this. And that's really, in a nutshell, that's what I envision doing for you is I take this, however we adopted final version, and at the end of the year, before you're evaluating me, I'm giving you whatever metrics I have, paragraph on each of these about how I either met it or I didn't.
Do you have specific coaching or training that you want to focus on, or is it just more broad?
So we have right now a team that we work with, Carrie, who, in my opinion, is doing great for our executive. As far as the training, we're working on that for the rest of the organization. I want to mention.
So we're working on specific training for our leadership team, which is our managers and supervisors right now. And a lot of it is focused on the new employee review process and how we're really going to be communicating with the employees and supporting the employees through that process. But we have just, this was Steve's idea, actually set aside time in September for a full day off-site with our managers. And we're working with those consultants right now on the topics and what we need to focus on. Mainly more manager tools, how to make sure that you're communicating with your staff, how to have difficult conversations, what are our values and what are we looking for as far as decision making and how our managers are working together. So that's our approach with our managers. We actually do a process with our leadership team for the employee training for the year. We'll be having that discussion with them coming here shortly to talk to our managers about what are the key areas that we really want to focus on with our employees for the year and how are we going to schedule those trainings throughout the year. We also have budget that we set aside for each individual to go to a local conference and a national conference. And we have made the decision that one of the employee goals for the year for every single employee will be an educational goal. So what do we want to focus on for that individual's development? So there's quite a few things that we're focusing on in the human resources area to make sure that we're really supporting that value of education and growth for employees at all levels.
That's great, Lori. Just from my own personal experience, it's like right now, it seems like we promote people into, and I'm not speaking about this organization, is that we promote people into supervisory or managerial positions, but we've not trained them, especially around HR, discipline, having those difficult performance conversations. And it's really,
Yeah, so we kind of do it twofold. So we do it across the board for all of our leadership team, and then we identify our are newer or more inexperienced supervisors. And we've actually identified, there's a training series that gets put on through SDAO as well. And so we've identified one of our supervisors that we're going to be sending through that multi-week training as well that goes through all of those specifics. We have sent individuals to BOLI training as well. BOLI has some good trainings as well. So we really do focus a lot of effort, time to make sure that we are supporting all of our management team, but those newer supervisors as well to make sure that they've got those skills developed.
Is there anything that's like a step before that, emerging leader development?
That's part of what we're really talking about with our employees, because now we have the criteria for the employees and for the managers. And so if we've got an individual that really is a high performer at the employee group that we've identified that really may be part of our succession plan for moving into a management position, now with those individual training goals, we can really identify for that person and get them into the trainings that will help them to develop those skills that are an expectation at the manager level. So I think it's a real opportunity for us to start to work on that for our staff.
Most of category 4 are kind of either did it or you didn't. Negotiate an IGA with City of Portland related to PMLS. This has been a challenging one, but we're making really good, I would say, progress politically. Portland's difficult. Bringing a new city administrator on board, trying to get the audience and make progress. And to some degree, we didn't want to jump into an IGA with them if it wasn't beneficial to us in the right way. And so we're taking the right steps, I think, to get to where we need to be. Renewing current IGAs with Port Portland, Metro, City of Portland, Gresham, Fairview. We will be doing those things, I can guarantee it. Continue to prepare for the execution of the PPA. I changed the wording on this one because, as you know, the Corps pushed this back on us. We didn't have the ability to resist that. They had a national policy change on when you can execute the PPA project partnership agreement, and it changed from, oh, you've got one project at 35% to you have to have every project in your portfolio to 35% design before you can sign the PPA. That pushed it back a year. So, for that to be a specific goal for Jim to hit a certain date, didn't feel fair because he didn't have control of that. Host an event with the state legislative delegation. That's either you did or you didn't. Develop an outreach strategy for the district's congressional offices. I either develop that and maybe the next step then would be implementing it. Social justice and equity. Again, I would report back to you on the first bullet there, what we were able to accomplish for the year. And then maybe the second year, I think it would be maybe more appropriate to look at specific goals for, okay, well, you did these things within the equity action plan, but now can we hit these? I think we're still feeling it out right now, and so much has changed with regard to the procurement rules on us that we need to be very diligent and careful as we step through it.
There's a lot that we've had to adjust to be able to comply with the federal requirements. And the focus really is on inclusion and inclusive sort of activities instead of equity. So it's been kind of a new approach, and there's been quite a few things that we needed to take off the list to be in compliance. And we're holding those and just gonna hang on to them for a couple of years. And hopefully we can take a look at our equity practices again going forward once we kind of get out of this interesting federal climate.
And then the next two are difficult to measure, but again, I would provide a status report of what was accomplished with regard to which trainings we were able to do for managers and leadership, and then social justice metrics, how we were able to embed those in our plans. So I suggest please continue to provide feedback on these, but also I will revise based on what I've heard. And we will, I'll try to, as soon as possible, get this on the agenda again and maybe wrap it up with this. And you have any thoughts in the interim about how to word certain things better or metrics? Feel free to just send me suggestions directly too.
Good job, Steve. I think you've hit all the high notes and we're just diving in at a deeper level, but I think everything and more you've outlined. So thank you. Good job. All right, any other questions or comments on this goals? Well, oh yes, go ahead, Vice Chair, sorry.
I just wanted to thank you, Steve, for having a open conversation and presenting some really thoughtful goals and coming in kind of cold first year and all that, feeling things out and seeing where we could all kind of come to some agreement on scale and number of goals and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I appreciate your thoughtfulness and the openness to the conversation. And Lori, thank you too. A lot of what you do provides information for us all to work with, and it's been really valuable. So thanks.
Yes, and it's been because we really tie, all the finance into, and it's all integrated.
It's
So,
very interrelated.
Yes.
When you add HR onto my plate and
Yes.
finance
Yes.
together.
So these are really your goals, Steve's goals, the organization's goals. So, all right, when is our next meeting? Do we know? I was looking at, July 15th. July 15th. Okay, so our next meeting is July 15th, but we do not have,
6:16.
we do not have a work session. And you all got your RFPs for the boat tour?
Yes.
Yes. Director Rob, you have something?
Well, just going on with the question about the calendar and the meetings. And so I didn't know from looking at this and the color coding, I didn't know, because it is a draft, I didn't necessarily want to say, well, it's there or it's not there. And so I did want to clarify in looking at this, it would look as though we're not having another work session until September. Is that the plan? Or is it just we haven't come up with a topic yet, and so we may have one in August?
Correct. Yeah, we don't have specific items identified, but we want to reserve the ability to add items as they come up. But we know definitively we're not having a work session in July.
There's no board meeting.
Correct. You're invited to our employee appreciation picnic for that.
Oh, so there is no board meeting in August.
The staff appreciation is at 12 o'clock here.
Correct. It's going to be in the shop because they're actually going to be terrorizing this room that week. So that we're repainting and replacing the carpeting. So
That's typically the day that we have our work session, right? The
That's
first
correct.
Thursday, so we would have that and not have the board meeting Thursday,
we're
correct?
doing the boat tours and the appreciation event. for all
Other
those.
fun activities.
We're doing fun. We're doing summer activities.
Oh, it's nice. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order?
Thank you all.
And with that, we will adjourn the June 18th, 2026 board meeting of the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District. Thank you all for coming. Have a great afternoon.